Ever feel like you're just drowning in information? You've got tons of data, but finding that one key thing feels almost impossible, like searching for a needle in a haystack.
Definitely. We've all been there.
Well, today we're kind of doing that searching for you.
Yeah, exactly. This deep dive, it's really for you, the lifelong learner, the person who wants to get to grips with complex stuff quickly and thoroughly.
Right, without all the overwhelm, but still loving those aha moments.
Exactly. And the topic today is, well, it's fascinating. We're diving into how you efficiently search huge amounts of data for similar things.
Okay, so think finding similar documents, emails, maybe even images.
Precisely. This stuff is crucial for enterprise search, email servers, recommendation systems you see everywhere.
Okay. But the challenge, as I understand it, is that these data sets, they're not static, right? They're always changing.
That's the crux of it. Yeah. Imagine trying to keep an index of, say, every sentence in your company's documents updated.
Yeah.
But in real time.
That sounds daunting.
It is. Current methods, they often have to periodically rebuild the entire index.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
From scratch.
Yeah. And that's incredibly time consuming. Expensive too.
Right. So today's mission then, what are we unpacking?
So today we're looking at a new approach. It's called FreshDiskANN.
FreshDiskANN. Okay.
Yeah. And it's a system designed to update these massive search indexes basically in real time without sacrificing speed or accuracy.
And potentially saving a lot of money and resources in the process.
That's the idea. And the core of it is this new kind of graph-based index that can actually handle continuous updates.
Okay, graph-based indexes. Let's talk about those first. You hear they're state-of-the-art for, static data when things aren't changing.
That's right. They're incredibly fast, very accurate for those static data sets. Basically, they create a network, kind of like a map, where similar data points are linked together.
So searching becomes like navigating this network, finding the closest connections.
Exactly. You sort of hop through the links to find the best matches. It's very efficient.
But like we said, the data keeps changing. That's the bottleneck, isn't it? These graphs weren't built for that constant adding and deleting.
That's been the big problem. These graph structures are fundamentally static. They just weren't designed for constant churn.
So trying to just, patch them up by removing links when something's deleted doesn't work well.
No, it really doesn't.
Yeah.
Simple approaches like that, just snipping connections, lead to a pretty rapid drop in search quality. The graph gets fragmented.
Okay. Harder to navigate.
Right. So this brings us back to FreshDiskANN. How does it tackle this? What's the new idea?
Yeah, what's the innovation?
Well, the researchers came up with a new graph-based indexing algorithm. They call it FreshVanna.
FreshVanna.
And this is really the first graph-based index that properly supports both inserting and deleting data points, all while keeping its search performance high.
Okay, that sounds like the key ingredient. FreshVanna. What's its secret sauce? How does it stay stable with all those changes?
The crucial bit is this idea they call relaxed pruning. It's controlled by a parameter, alpha, written as
relaxed pruning. So less aggressive cutting of links than older methods.
Exactly. Previous methods like HNSW or NSG, they pruned links really aggressively to keep the graph sparse, lean. FreshVanna, especially with alpha greater than 1, keeps more connections.
Interesting. So it's a denser graph, a more interconnected network. How does that help with the updates?
Well, by keeping more connections, the graph's navigability, its ability to let searches flow through it, doesn't degrade so quickly when you add or remove points.
I see. Like having more side streets in a city. If one road is blocked, there are still other ways to get there.
That's a great analogy, yeah. This denser structure means searches can still find the nearest neighbors quickly and reliably, even if the index is stored on slower media, like an SSD.
Which is important for cost, right? SSDs are cheaper than RAM for huge data sets.
Absolutely.
And did they test this? Does FreshVanna hold up under pressure?
Oh, yeah. They put it through its paces. They did experiments where they repeatedly deleted and then reinserted large chunks of data.
And the results?
Pretty striking. Unlike those older methods we mentioned, FreshVanna maintained a really stable search accuracy over many, many update cycles, especially with that alpha value above 1. It showed it could really handle the churn.
Okay, so FreshVanna works well, at least in memory. But we started by talking about billions of data points. That's not going to fit in RAM easily. How does FreshDiskANN scale this up?
Right, that's where the full FreshDiskANN system architecture comes in. FreshVanna handles the dynamic graph logic. But to deal with, billions of points, you need to use SSDs effectively.
So more than just the algorithm,
Yeah.
it's a whole structure.
Yes, it uses a two-part system.
Two parts. Okay.
First, there's the long-term index, or LTI. This is where the bulk of the data, the vast majority of the graph indexed, actually lives. It's on the SSD, usually in a compressed format.
Right, the main archive on the SSD. What's the second part?
That's the temporary index, or temp index. It's a smaller, much faster, FreshDiskANN index that sits entirely in RAM.
Ah, so all the recent updates, the new inserts, the deletes, they go into this fast RAM index first.
Exactly. And to keep things running smoothly, you can actually have multiple read-only temp indexes, RO temp indexes they call them, handling searches, while one read-write temp index, the RW temp index, is actively taking in the latest changes.
Clever.
And deletions.
There's also a separate delete list, just keeping track of items flagged for removal.
Okay, so new stuff and deletions hit the fast temp index in RAM. But eventually that has to get merged into the big LTI on the SSD, right?
Yeah.
How does that happen without slowing everything down?
That's the magic of a background process they designed called streaming merge.
Streaming merge. Okay.
When the temp index in RAM gets too big, this streaming merge process kicks in automatically. It merges the changes from RAM into the main SSD-based LTI. And it does this really cleverly to avoid slow random writes to the SSD, which are usually the bottleneck.
How does it avoid those slow writes? You mentioned phases? Yeah, it's basically a two-pass process. First is the delete phase.
Right.
It goes through the LTI on the SSD, reads blocks, processes the deletions marked in the delete list, and writes the updated blocks back, sort of cleaning house first.
Got it. Handle the removals. Then what?
Then comes the insert phase. This is where the new data points from the temp index get added. But instead of just scattering them onto the SSD, it first figures out their connections within the graph, doing that efficiently in memory.
Okay.
And then there's a final patch phase. This updates the LTI on the SSD with all these new connections, but it does it in a structured block-by-block way. Much more efficient for SSDs than random little writes everywhere.
That sounds remarkably well thought out. Very sophisticated. So the bottom line, what kind of performance does this whole FreshDiskANN system deliver? Does it actually achieve that real-time update goal?
The results they reported are, well, pretty staggering, actually. On just a single commodity machine, nothing too fancy, with an SSD and, importantly, limited RAM under 128 gigs.
Okay, quite standard hardware then.
Yeah. It can index over 1 billion data points.
1 billion points on one machine.
Yes. And it can support thousands of concurrent real-time inserts, deletes, and searches per second.
Wow. And accuracy, does that hold up?
Very well. They reported over 95% recall in their tests, which is excellent for this scale.
That's fantastic. And the cost savings angle, you mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, they estimated it could reduce the cost of keeping these indexes fresh by maybe 5 to 10 times compared to the old way of doing full rebuilds.
5 to 10 times cheaper?
And that streaming merge process, taking, say, a 10% change, which is a lot for 1 billion points, and merging it in. It takes way, way less time than rebuilding the whole thing, hours instead of potentially days.
That really could change the game for organizations, making this kind of powerful, up-to-date search much more accessible.
Absolutely. It democratizes it in a way.
Did they test this over a longer period, like simulate real-world continuous operation?
They did. They ran it for a week on a data set with close to 1 billion points.
How did it fare?
Rock solid, apparently. Stable recall, consistently low latency for the updates under a millisecond, which is amazing.
Under 1 emirs for an update.
Yeah. And search speeds were also very fast, under 20 milliseconds on average, even with thousands of queries hitting it per second.
So it seems robust, proven at scale, at least for 1 billion points. What about even bigger? Trillion-point data sets. Is that feasible?
The researchers suggest that for those truly massive scales, you could distribute FreshDiskANN across multiple machines.
Ah, okay. So scale out horizontally.
Exactly. Each machine handles maybe 1 billion points or so. Searches get broadcast, results collected, updates get routed to the right machine. It offers a path to handle enormous scale with a much better cost profile than monolithic rebuilds.
Okay, fantastic. So let's try and boil this down. What's the main takeaway for you listening from this whole deep dive into FreshDiskANN?
I think the key takeaway is that FreshDiskANN is a really major step forward. It gives us a way to handle and search these huge, constantly changing data sets in real time.
And crucially, on hardware that's not, ridiculously expensive or exotic.
Exactly. On surprisingly modest hardware.
Yeah.
And the implications are huge for making information way more accessible, much more up-to-date in all sorts of applications you probably use every single day.
Yeah, you start thinking about it. Near real-time updates for news indexes, or your company's internal knowledge base instantly reflecting changes, or recommendation engines getting much more dynamic.
All without that massive cost and the downtime that comes with rebuilding everything.
It really does spark the imagination. What other areas could this impact? Scientific data analysis, financial markets?
Oh, the possibilities are vast. Anytime you have large dynamic data sets where finding similar items quickly is important.
If you're listening and want to get into the weeds, the technical details.
Yeah, the research paper is definitely the place to go. It's titled FreshDiskANN, a fast and accurate graph-based ANN index for streaming similarity search. Easy to find online.
Great. And maybe just a final thought to leave everyone with.
Well, just that in this world we're living in, increasingly driven by data, the ability to efficiently manage and search dynamic information at this massive scale, it's not just a nice to have, it's becoming absolutely critical.
And FreshDiskANN shows us a really promising way to achieve that.
It certainly does, a very innovative path forward.